$500 million. It sounds a lot of money, but in aid terms, it's not. That's all that's needed to stop millions of children in the Horn of Africa dying. The UN will hold an emergency meeting on funding next week as a famine is declared. The UN's food agency says that 12 million people need help urgently. Hundreds are dying every day. Almost a third of the population is starving in the Somali regions where a famine's been declared. The UN says that it needs $500 million, but aid agencies like Oxfam put the bill at double that. So far, though, only a fraction of what is needed has been raised from donor nations. Peter Greste is live for us at the Dolo Ado aid camp in Ethiopia. It's now home to more than 100,000 Somali refugees. Peter, what are conditions in that camp like?
About as bad as you could imagine, Adrian. We've just been around a little tour of this camp. This is actually a transit area. This is a place where the new arrivals are processed, where they get registered, where they get their supplies of food and non-food items like tents, blankets, cooking equipment and so on. And then they move on to the camps further beyond. But even here, there are about 11,000 people waiting to be processed, waiting to move on to something a little bit more settled. Just outside the camp, we saw a field of what looked like strange bumps, and I asked our translator what this was about. He explained that these were recent graves. The numbers of people dying here are absolutely phenomenal. Now, the UN says that they are able to scale up the operations. They are starting to get the necessary food and medical supplies in here. They are catching up, but it will take at least another week, perhaps two, before they're really able to deal with all the needs of the people here.
And it's hard, Peter, just looking at you from the angle that we are, to get a handle on just how desolate that part of the world is after so long without rain. I mean, it is a desert, isn't it?
Absolutely, it's a desert. It is incredibly dry. I mean, as you drive through here, all you ever see are thorn bushes and not a single blade of grass. People that have come through the desert are telling us that it's sometimes 50 kilometres on foot between watering holes. So just imagine the challenge, the risk that a lot of people are taking to get here. When they leave their homes deep inside Somalia, they're already deeply malnourished, they're already suffering from illness, they have very little water, and they're risking their lives to come here, and yet this remains an attractive place for them. This remains a better alternative. It is a very, very desperate situation indeed.
Yeah, again, I mean, I just cannot imagine what these people are going through, that somewhere like that, with those makeshift tents behind you, is more attractive to the homes they've left behind.
That's right, and I think that's one of the key things to bear in mind, that despite all of the hardship that you're seeing in this place, it still remains a better option. The officials are telling us that the camp that they've set up here now holds a little bit over 100,000 people, but they're already establishing the infrastructure and planning to double that size to around 200,000. Now, the numbers of new arrivals have dropped off since their peak of about 2,000 a day to something closer to between 200 and 400. We're still trying to figure out why that is. It certainly doesn't seem to be because things are any better in Somalia. A number of people who have been speaking to have been suggesting that perhaps that march from central Somalia is simply too difficult for people to make. There still needs to be more investigations, but clearly something is going on there.
Okay, so the situation, I mean, it's set to get worse before it gets any better. Last time I spoke to you, Peter, a couple of days ago, you were at a camp somewhere in Kenya. How do conditions in the camp in Somalia, in which you're in at the moment, compare to that camp in Kenya?
In a lot of respects, this is a lot worse. What we saw in Somalia was the town of Jazeera and the surrounding districts, and those were a lot of Kenyans who are moving in. Now, the infrastructure in Kenya is better. It's not quite as remote as this place is. It takes 3 solid days of driving over terrible roads to get here from Addis Ababa, and that's where the main supplies are having to come from. So the situation here is, in fact, a good deal worse. These are also predominantly Somalis, and again, they're having to fight or walk their way through the conflict zones, through a lot of the rebel posts. A lot of people are telling us that the rebels are intercepting refugees as they try to cross here, telling them that they really shouldn't be coming. So the kinds of challenges that are facing them are really quite astonishing. But the money and the resources here are slowly trickling in.
Peter, many thanks indeed. Peter Greste live at the Dolo Ado aid camp in Ethiopia.